Hey guys, Lee with LG Speed and Custom. In this video, we are going to weld in an independent front suspension in Felipe's 46 Ford Coupe. This is part 2 on this build. In the first video, we rolled in this completely stock 46 Ford Coupe, and we took the front clip off it, we pulled the engine and transmission out of it, and we pulled the original suspension out of it. We are now ready to start fitting the IFS front suspension in it. The first thing we're gonna have to do is remove all these rivets here and pull this front cross member out. And we're also going to pull this original steering box mount out. I don't know if it's necessarily in the way for what we're doing, but it seems weird to just leave it in there. And you know, it's always nice to have a little bit more clearance in the engine compartment. Taking these rivets out isn't the most fun job in the world. I'm going to use this zip disc on a grinder here, and I'm going to cut an X in there. Once I've got the X cut through, we can come back with the air chisel and knock the head off. Once the head's knocked off, usually, like in theory, you should be able to take your air hammer and just drive the rivet back out. I've never had good luck with that. What works really well for me is to heat the actual rivet up hot with the torch first and then drive it through. I don't know, just making it hot, it moves so much easier. It's like butter. It's like butter that you just took out of the fridge versus butter that's been sitting on the counter on a nice warm day. I like butter. So it looks like we've got 1, 2, that one's a bolt, 3 rivets here, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I guess 8 including the bolt. These ones are gonna be a little bit tough to get to with the grinder. We might have to come back with like the little cutoff disc, like the little 3-inch guys. We might be able to get that from there. And then underneath, I think, no, those ones are the same ones that are on the top. So we should be okay with that. All right, let's see if this will come out. I got all the rivets out. Come on, so close. Maybe hammer it back a bit. Okay, I think we got it. Maybe not. There we go. It's free and very warm. Front cross member is out. Steering box bracket is off. We can start cleaning this stuff up now. And I think we need to fill these 2 holes. I can't remember if it's these 2 or these 2. I got to double check on the... It came with a little instruction sheet. We'll let it cool down first. All right, we're all cooled down now. I kind of wire wheeled the frame and then cleaned it down the bare metal where our bump stop is. So this bump stop right here, we're gonna take out next. And it is the center line for where our axle needs to be. So we'll take both bump stops out on the other side. They're just threaded into the frame. It blows my mind that they're this old and they're just unthreading like this. Once they're unthreaded out of there, we'll take the center of the hole that they thread into and then draw our line straight up and all the way around down the backside. And then we've got our center line reference point so that we know where to fit the cross member. Is this actually coming out? It's turning, but it doesn't look like it's moving. Oh yeah, it is, it is. Never mind. There we go. Axle center line, right there. So we're under the car looking up now. Here's where our bump stop used to thread in. And I've run a piece of tubing across to the other side. And I've got the edge of the tubing in the center of the hole. As well as I've measured from here out to here on both sides. And we're the same on both sides, 16 inches from here to here. And 17.5 inches from here to here. So we know this is straight. We can take a Sharpie now and we'll draw our straight line along there, and then we'll go up the side and across the top. I put a long straight edge on the running board and then set my angle finder to that, so that way I know that this is, you know, parallel with the car. Got the line going up both sides, and then I marked it across the top. And from our line to the frame horn, we've got 18.5 on both sides. And by putting this piece of tubing across and running our Sharpie along that, you know, makes sure that our straight line is straight. If we were to just take this piece here, because these frame horns are tapered, look at the angle that that's on. We don't want to go off of that. We want to go straight across so that we've got a straight imaginary line across there. With our axle center line established, we can move on now to actually fitting this cross member, and that will tell us we're going to have to trim a little bit of this away and fill these 2 holes here. But before we do that, we'll get this like prepped and ready to go. So there's a couple things we got to modify on this. This is made by Speedway Motors. The customer, he supplied it. I've never used a Speedway one before. But it is currently set up to use like a stock Ford Mustang 2 style lower control arm, which goes in there and comes out and then has a secondary brace that goes back to the frame. We're going to use tubular control arms, which is a much easier design to install. And I don't know if it's a necessarily better design than the Ford one, but it's definitely easier to install. To do that, this is going to sit like that. As you can see, we've got a big space back here. So what Speedway has done is they've got this guy that goes in here to stop that from collapsing where the lower control arm bushing used to go. And then it's got this piece that's going to go in the back there with a gusset that's going to get welded on. This hole is set up for the stock Ford bolt, and we need to drill it out so that this guy will fit. So we're going to drill it out to a 5/8 hole. Once those are drilled out, we can slide this piece in, slide this piece on, bolt it up tight, and then we'll weld it. Our holes are drilled out and I can get this long bolt all the way through now. You got our inside pieces on there. These guys are sitting where they need to be. I'm gonna take this piece of flat bar now and just vice grip it in here. I'll tighten that up a little more. And all that is essentially doing is just holding these like on the same plane with each other. In theory, they should be like level now. Let's move this a little bit out of the way so that I can get the welder in there. And then we're gonna go ahead and weld this up. I'll probably just put a good tack on the end and then pull this plate out and then fully weld it up. We'll weld all along here, around here, and then we'll weld as much of the inside one as we can. The inside one isn't like super critical. We're mostly just welding it so that it doesn't like fall out or get jumbled around while we're handling it. Once the bolt is in there and it's tight, like it's not gonna go anywhere. So the weld's mostly just to hold it in place while we're putting it together. One side, this side's got a little bit of a gap. I don't know if this was welded together crooked when they built it, or if this bracket is cut crooked, I don't know. It's not a big enough gap that I'm worried about it. There's nothing we can, I mean, we could take it all apart, but it'll be fine. All right, now, let's weld this up. So I'm welding away on here, and it's going great. And all of a sudden I'm like, why am I getting wet? We've got some technical difficulties going on here. I blew a water cooler line. So I'm gonna take a break from that, which is like almost done, and fix this because it's getting a little out of hand. So I'm walking over to the welding shop right now to fix this or get a new one. I thought I could just like cut it and put a little barb fitting in there and a hose clamp, but when I cut it open, I realized there is a copper cable in there. So, whoops. All right, well that was 250 bucks, and then I walked past the chrome shop on my way there, and so that was more money. I could stop in and give them money. Don't ever get a shop across the street from a chrome shop. It's very expensive. All right, crisis averted. We're all back together. Floor is almost even dry. And I got this all welded up. I finished the last little bits. I took the control arms off to do this little inside bit here because I didn't want to melt the bushing on there. I did give it a quick little tack just so that it didn't like shift at all. And we're welded, I don't know, like halfway around on this side. Then our pieces that we just welded in here, they're welded all the way around. So pretty happy with those. My welds, I tell you what, man, my welds next to these Speedway welds look incredible. So I just mocked the cross member up. It says in the instructions that you got to trim from your axle center line forward. You got to trim this 1 inch and 7/8, which here's our axle center line here. So that's, you know, makes sense. I just wanted to mock it up first to make sure, because there's too many times I've followed the instructions like step by step only to find out that it wasn't quite right. So I don't know. You can follow the instructions on your builds. I like to, you know, double check stuff first before I cut. So this is 3 3/4 of an inch wide, and if we're already in line with this, we need to come half that distance to get this all the way. So 3 3/4 divided by 2 is 1 inch and 7/8. So I think they were right. All right, let's try another mock-up. It's closer. But still not quite right. I think you just gotta like shave it down a little bit on the sides to get it. Actually, let's get a hammer. Pretty close. There's your problem right there. We gotta get that rivet out of there. It's the same on the other side. There's those rivets, I think, are for the factory boxing plates. And yeah, that rivet's definitely, it's stopping it from going up high enough. And going forward, just, well, it might be forward enough. I should draw a center line on the cross member itself. I've got those rivet heads ground down. We can go ahead and start building or cutting out little circles to fill these holes here. I just used the torch and heated up where the rivets were. They were a little distorted from when I hammered them out. So I just heated them up and then kind of like bumped this area back out with a pry bar and got it like nice and flat again on both sides. I was contemplating just like cutting this whole section out and just welding in a whole new piece, but I thought I'd give the torch a try first, and yeah, it moved really easy, so I'm happy with that. We'll weld up these 4 rivet holes at the same time, fill that hole and that hole. We'll probably cut those pieces out on the plasma table. So I just drew these up on the computer here. We've got our front plug and our rear plug. This one is 2 1/4. And this one is 2 5/16 with the end flattened off like that. So we'll go ahead and cut these out of some 10 gauge. That's what the boxing plates are, is 10 gauge. Boom, just like that. Oh yeah, look at that. Ah. All right, this one, I think the frame rail's got a little curve right there. We might have to tweak this one with a hammer as we're welding it in. But, well, you get the idea. I'm gonna go ahead and weld those in. All right, those are all welded up and ground. Let's fit this cross member again and see where we're at. Oh, I think it's hammer time. It's a little snug. There we go. A little more. Okay, that's touching down there. I think we're in place. Yeah. Okay, I've got this sitting in place here. It took a little bit of tweaking. What was happening is these frame rails weren't square. This piece is cut square, but the frame rails, because it's a C-channel like this, they were like this. So I took these C-clamps and just on each side of the cross member, I squeezed the frame back together to get it to the 90 degrees, and now this is sitting really nice. Before, it was touching up here and I had like almost a 3/8 gap on this end. Also up here, we're sitting flush with the top of the frame rails on both sides. Our lineup marks are lined up, so we're happy that way. I think we can go ahead and tack this piece in. Got all 4 corners tacked. So let's go ahead and take our clamps off and pull the jack out. See what happens. I put this clamp across just to kind of like squeeze it together nice and tight. The gaps, it does have like some gaps in there, but that's kind of inevitable when you're working with like a factory frame. It was probably never like totally straight from ever to begin with. Cool, nothing sprung loose yet. I'll show you what I mean by the gaps. Like, see how we're nice and tight here, but then up here we've got like a pretty good gap, but we're nice and tight along here like that. We can't really get that any closer. It's because this piece isn't totally straight. Same with on this side. You know, we got a pretty big gap there, starting from about here forward, but back here, like, it's nice and tight. So, but it's fine. I mean, we'll just weld it up and it'll be okay. I'm not worried about it at all. I'm just pointing this out so that if you're doing it at home and you're like trying to get it like absolutely perfect and fighting yourself, that's why. It's because this is like a mass-produced stamped frame that's slapped together on an assembly line. It's probably not totally perfect. So before we call this piece fit, I just want to take a couple measurements from the cross member to the front of the frame horn here. We've got 16 and 9/16. On this side, 16 and 9/16. From the bottom of the cross member to the frame horn, we've got 15 and 5/8. We've got 15 and 5/8. Corner to corner, 31 inches. 31 inches. How do you like that? First try. All right, that technically we could weld in now, but I think we're going to start on the hats next. The hats, I've got one of them sitting over here already. Oh, actually, you know what? Before we put the hats on, we got to do the little coil notch in here. I've never done that before. This is the first car I've come across that has that. But basically, like, so our coil spring's going to sit in here, right? And this is too close to here, so our coil spring is going to rub. Now, this car, he's running coilovers, so I don't know if we need to do this, but I'd like to do it anyways, just in case at some point somebody in the future decides to put coils in it instead of the coilovers, then it's done. And it won't take that long to do it now. These essentially just sit right here. I've marked the center point on it. They actually had a notch right there that I don't know if that was supposed to be the center point or if that's just where the plasma cutter came in and cut this piece out. But anyways, there's a center there, 3.5 inches. This is 7 inches wide. These are tapered. They go one direction only. It slopes to the back. I don't know if you can see that from where you're at. As opposed to if we put it on this side, it slopes to the front. And you don't want it to slope to the front. You want it to slope to the back. And that is for your anti-dive, which is part of the suspension geometry that basically, like, when you hammer the brakes on and all the weight shifts forward. You know, I just read on anti-dive, not like yesterday or the day before, because I don't totally know the theory on it, on how it works, but it's got something to do so that when you slam on the brakes, the suspension still compresses, as opposed to, I think if they're straight and you slam the brakes on and the car dips forward like that, the suspension's going to, yeah, it'll bind, because with it like this, you slam the brakes on, it comes level, it still squats, right? If it is parallel, you slam the brakes on and the car tips forward. Now it's like, if you think of like forks on a motorcycle, if they're straight up and down, they're not gonna work, but because they're raked out, they work. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. It makes sense in my head. That's the important part. But yeah, that's why these are on a slope. So the slope always goes to the back. That's all you gotta remember. Let's mark out our, I guess we gotta cut, like, it says on the instructions, we gotta go 3/8 of an inch back. And then just like, I don't know, the radius of a coil spring, I guess. It doesn't really say much more than that. We're just gonna wing it. This is set at 3/8 of an inch. So that's how far back it needs to come. This looks to be like about the thickness of a coil spring. The girthiness of a coil spring. So let's cut this out, and then it says to just hammer that in.
Hey, Daddy!
What? What do you got? Snacks?
Yeah.
Snacks.
You're all done. You're all done with your cookie?
Thank you. Okay, watch your eyeballs. Sparks are gonna shoot towards you guys.
On this side.
Okay, like that, I guess. And now I got a big hammer. We'll see if we can hammer it in. You know, that actually went pretty good. Not bad. I'm gonna do the other side now. Well, that, I got to admit, went way better than I was expecting it to. I guess, so we can't put the hats on yet because we got to weld this up. So it's 4:30 Friday afternoon. So I'm just going to spend, I got a half an hour left today before it's quitting time. And then tomorrow, brown sugar time. So yeah, I think I'm just going to spend the rest of the day. I'll start welding for the next half an hour. I'm going to weld these cracks or splits up that we just did, and then start welding this cross member in. Just going up and around, down the sides, around the bottom. I'm going to TIG it all. I kind of cheat though, and I MIG weld the back inside just because it's so much easier. And yeah, we'll do that for the rest of the day, and then Monday morning when we come back, we can fit the hats. right, it's all welded up. And I did TIG weld the inside. There was, I don't know why, but I feel like the last one I did, it was like just too awkward to get in there, but it worked out today, so. And there's still 4 minutes left in the day. It's only like 4:56 right now. Killing it. All right, be back on this on Monday morning. Good morning, it's Monday. Gonna jump right back into this. So when we left off on Friday, we were welding this cross member in. Coming back and looking at it today, I think I'm going to weld. So the way this cross member like fit in here, it butted right up against the outside frame rail to about here, and then I jumped down and welded to the inside frame rail, or the boxing plate you could call it, all the way down into there. I think I'm gonna come back before, wow, that was loud. Before I weld this hat on, I'm gonna come back and I think I'm gonna weld the outer frame rail to the inner frame rail right in this spot right here. Just because that hat is gonna get welded to the top here, and I don't want that force like pulling. Mind you, there's not gonna be a lot of force pulling this way because the weight of the car is gonna be pushing this way, but still, I want to weld that right up so that it'll, I mean, it kinda, yeah, you guys see what I'm talking about. If we weld that to the inner frame rail first and then come back and weld our hat on top, as well as this has a little bit of a natural wave to it, so I'm gonna put a C-clamp on it as well, just to hold it nice and flat. I've C-clamped a big piece of flat plate down on top of the frame rail just to like force it kind of flat into shape and keep it as flat as possible. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and weld that up. Not a bad weld for first thing Monday morning. When I got to the end, I realized like that hat I think is 7 inches wide, so I just guessed, but I went like a little bit further to where the hat is gonna end. And now I'm wondering if I should like do the same on this side, just go back and weld that up, just so that this surface here is like attached to that area. I'll take this off and then mock the hat up and just see where it ends on there. Hey, that was actually a pretty good guess, wasn't it? Let me find a Sharpie. And I'm gonna mark where this ends. Actually, let's go a little bit further. Let's go to there, and maybe we'll go to there. Just to give it a little bit of extra. All right, those are welded up on both sides. Oh, my light. Again, I use just the flat plate to hold it flat. So I'll do the same on this side, and then we'll fit the hats. So for the hats, again, I think I talked about this already. I just marked the center line on there, and I'll get this one marked drivers, because remember they slope to the back. Just like how that slopes to the back. This front by my thumb is taller than here. But essentially, you just line your mark up. I redrew my center line, by the way, because it got a little faded. But yeah, you just set them on top like that and weld them up. There's not a lot to it. I've got both hats just like mocked up in place. And what I like to do, aside from just setting them on the top of the frame rail like it says to do, is I clamped a big straight edge across the top. Now you gotta watch, because from this point out, they kick up, so you gotta make sure that your straight edge is on the flat part. And I do this to get the hats parallel with each other and level with the frame. So if we put our angle finder on here, it's kind of like, depending on where you sit, between 0.3 and 0.5. There's 0.4 right there. Put it up here, and we're reading 0.4. Let's put it on here. That's reading, depending on where it sits, between 0.4 and 0.5, which is, you know, I think close enough. And out here we are, well, that says 0 right there. Let's get it a little closer to where our straight edge is. Okay, yeah, that's 0.4. What are we out here? 0.5. So yeah, I think that's within, that's acceptable. And we are 0.4 that way. That is 0.6. 0.8. We can, once we get it like tacked on there, we can manipulate those a bit, but the important part is, at this point, is they're parallel this way. So I'm gonna go ahead and tack it, and then we can fine tune them to get them. And I don't even know how critical that is, because it's just a coil spring that sits in there, and you know, they're definitely not flat. So probably getting a little like over carried away with this, but you know, it's not hard. Why not just take the extra little bit of effort? Okay, I got those tacked in place. We got a tack here and a tack right here. We're reading, I don't know if this shows up, 0.3, 0.3, 0.2, 0.1, I don't know. There's a little bit of slag on there, so it's 0.5 there. I think we're close enough. Let's find a flat spot on here where it's not rocking. There we go. 0.3. I'm happy with that. Yeah, basically same as the cross member on Friday. We're just gonna weld all the way around, down the sides, up through here, across to here, down, all the way around. There we go, we're all welded up. We've got our cross member in and we've got our hats on. That's really all there is for like the heavy fabrication with putting an IFS front end in. From here, it's pretty straightforward. We're just gonna bolt our control arms and our spindles on, put our hubs on, and that's basically it. Oh, no, we still gotta do the steering rack. We still have to fit the steering rack, but that's, again, just a bolt-on thing. Some IFS front ends, not necessarily on this car, but on like 55 to 59 Chevy trucks. I've done quite a few of those, and you have to like actually put a C-notch in the frame for the rack to go through, but we don't need to worry about that on this car, which is fantastic. Yeah, let's take this stuff to the front of the car and start bolting it on. Gonna start with the lower control arm. Just slide it in there. Dude, come on. I think I need a mallet. There we go. I'm not gonna tighten any of this up yet because it's all gonna have to come apart again to get painted. Let's do upper control arm and spindle next. The lower control arms are like side specific, but the upper control arms are, it doesn't matter which side they go on. Is that not gonna slide through there? Oh yeah, it works this way. They got these T-bolts that slide in from the bottom. There's two different styles of these upper hats. This is how like normally they used to always be. And then I think the first one I saw was, I can't remember if it was Heights or Fat Man fabrications, but they had, instead of having the T-bolts come up this way, they had a plate. It just looked like a piece of angle iron that was welded on there, and they came through this way so that instead of it sitting like that, this upper one sat, oh, I can't turn that, but it sat this way, and you put the shims in there to adjust it. I prefer that style just because it's a little more rigid. These T-bolts, it doesn't happen very often, but I have had it happen once or twice actually, where you hit a good pothole and it jars this hard enough that it actually will slide the T-bolts on there, and you'll have to get a wheel alignment again. So yeah, let's put those there. Anyways, that's just something to consider if you're shopping for an IFS front end. These slots are to set your camber. Oh, there we go. So I'm gonna set it, I think, probably 3/4 of the way in for our camber adjustment, and obviously it's gonna have to go to, you know, a wheel alignment shop for the end, but I think that'll be like a pretty good starting point. Okay, upper control arm, done. As I was putting the passenger side on, I realized our factory brake tube or brake line holder is actually kind of in the way a little bit, which I was so confident that these were gonna work fine. So what I think I might do, actually, you know what? Let's hold off on that. I was gonna say, I'm gonna nick the corner off here just so that that control arm has clearance. But I'm gonna wait until we get the rest of the front end together. Oh, we don't have calipers yet. So if you watch video 1 when we did the teardown on this, we went through all the parts with this front end, and Felipe, he supplied me with this front end, and when I was unboxing it, I discovered the coilovers are missing pieces, and for some reason we don't have calipers. So what I was thinking just now before I cut that off is I should wait until I get the calipers on, because the brake hoses, this might not be a good spot for them anyways. And it looks like we might be able to unbolt this and maybe flip it around to the underside. So I don't know, we'll just hold off on that for now until we get calipers. Hopefully they show up here someday soon. In the meantime, we can still continue on and put our spindle together. Steering arm goes to the front. I also just realized, as I was fitting there, grabbing the spindle out of the trunk, not only do we not have the calipers, we don't have caliper brackets either. So he must have, when he dropped the car off, he must have forgot a box at home. Note, there's a little spacer here on our lower ball joint. Come on, get in there. Do we need that spacer in there? I can't get the ball joint to go all the way through. Let me look into this. Okay, I've found their instructions on Speedway's website, and the spacer actually goes on top. So now you know. I also read, so for everyone wondering in video 1, when we pulled the flathead out and I said that the flathead might not be going in, Felipe wants to put a Chevy with an automatic back in, so we're not putting the flathead back in. My concern was that the original flathead motor mounts are part of the original cross member, which we since removed, but I just read that this front cross member actually interferes with the stock oil pan, so to keep a flathead in here, you'd have to lift the engine and transmission further up in the frame rails, which would mean reworking the toe board for more engine and transmission clearance. Now you know. Spindle, done. Look at that. Woo, woo. We got some suspensionation. Unfortunately, my mic had died right here, but what I was getting at is it's time to put the rack in. So there's these rubber bushings that have to go in, and they go in through the back side. And here I am tapping them in with my hammer, tappa, tappa, tap, tappa, 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 and my hammer broke, which was just tragic. I was really sad about that hammer. That's a great hammer. One of the best hammers I've ever had, actually. Actually, it's not even a hammer, it's a mallet. So, I don't know, I guess it's okay. Wow, look at that, it's a miracle. My hammer's back, or my mallet. I gotta get my terminology right, so. Tappa, 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 we're pounding the little rubber bushings in, and one went really good, and the other didn't, but they both eventually went, so that's fine. Now, yada, yada, yada. They have two different control arms available, a regular length one and a shorter one. The shorter one is for the, what am I talking about here? Oh, I don't remember. Yeah. Okay, got it. The shorter one is to keep the track width narrower so that it, like, the wheels fit in the fender and stuff. And because the track width needs to be narrowed, for this rack to work, you have to cut the ends down 5/8 of an inch to accommodate the 5/8 narrower rack. So to cut these threads down, step one is to thread this nut on, and that way after we make the cut, when you unthread, it will like fix all the threads up that get all weird when you cut it. Now I'm wrapping some tape around it so that we have something to make a mark on. I've got the T-square set to 5/8 of an inch, and I'm just gonna mark it with this pencil here. And now we know how far in we have to cut it. Right there. And grinder noises. Oh, wow, and there it is, chopped off, just like that. Now we're gonna take the tape off. My mic is still dead, by the way, in case you haven't figured that out. Unthread the nut, and bingo, bambo. It has re-threaded our threads that got damaged. Now we thread it back on, and it's great. Oh, there's a little piece right there. I'm just gonna rip that off. We'll unthread it, and thread it back on. No, we're not. And I still haven't noticed my mic is dead. This is just terrible. What I'm getting at now is we're gonna put the tie rod ends on. However, I have just discovered that the tie rod ends that belong in this kit they're actually missing. So we don't have tie rod ends, but just wait. Oh, are we threading the other side on now? I kind of forgot what exactly I was saying at this point, but yeah, that's threading on. Oh, here we go here. I've got another set of tie rod ends that were left over from a previous job. I just don't remember if they are normal tie rod ends for a manual rack, or if they're for a power rack, or if there's even a difference between manual ends and power ends. So, but I'm gonna try them either way because I've already got them. So why wouldn't we try them? They'll either work or they won't work. So I'm unbagging them now. We're gonna thread them on. Threading. Oh, wait a minute. I should put some copper coat on here first, because always put stuff together with copper coat. Copper coat it's not for you, it's for the next guy. It's like one of those really generous, thoughtful things that you do for people in the future, like when an old person plants a tree for shade, knowing they'll be dead before that tree ever provides them shade. It's not for you, it's for the future generation. Somebody someday is gonna thank me for putting copper coat on. Anyways, I'm threading them back on now with some copper coat. Threading, and threaded. All right, next side. Step one, open the bag. Step two, man, who's editing this video? Oh yeah, me. So when I'm not doing a voiceover, normally I can like just cut this part out, but I'm not a good enough editor at this point to figure out how to cut that stuff out and do a voiceover at the same time, because I'm not actually like a filmmaker. I'm a car builder that just, I don't know, figured out how to jumble his way through editing. All right, they're on. Good, perfect. All right. right, rack into the car. One thing I did while it was still on the bench vise is I centered the rack. And to do that, I just turned this all the way to one side until it like maxed out. And then cranked it all the way the other way and counted the turns. And it was 3 3.5 turns lock to lock. So then I just divided that by 2, which is 1 3/4, and turned it back 1 3/4. And that centers the rack so that it's dead center this way. All right, those are on. Our tie rod ends are hooked up, and these tie rod ends aren't going to work. They're too wide, so I'll have to get the correct ones for it. But it was worth a shot. I mean, they were sitting in the bolt bin, so why not? They're threaded in all the way as far as they will go. And as you can see, we are still too far that way. It needs to be an 1/8 inch towed in, which obviously we can't set the total toe in until we've got the wheels and stuff on. So the reason these don't go in far enough is because it runs out of threads. The threads bottom out in here. So I just realized, like, instead of waiting for the other ones to get here, if he even has them, we might have to order them. Let's just cut like another 3/4 of an inch off, or that much. I should measure that. What do we got? 3/8 of an inch. We'll cut another 3/8 off, and we should be fine then. Okay, that's threaded almost all the way in. And we can go a little bit more. Do we need to? Maybe. With the steering rack sorted out, I've moved on to dry fitting the rotors and stuff. Like I said earlier, I'm not greasing any of this stuff yet because we're gonna have to paint it and everything. The bearing, the inner bearing, does not want to slide on. It is, I mean, it kind of slides on, like I could probably pound it on with a mallet, but it's a little bit tight. So I got some 320 grit here, and I'm just kind of polishing that, I guess, to see if we can get it to slide on. What I'm concerned about, see, it goes, but like, you won't be able to get that apart without ripping like when you go to take the rotor off to service it or whatever, the wheel bearing is going to get stuck on there. And it's just going to pull the seal and everything out, which is no good. So that's kind of a bummer. This is the first time I've run across this issue before. So we'll just do this until it slides on in a nice, happy, cooperative way. All right, I got it where I'm pretty happy with it. It's a little bit tight first getting on, but then it slides right on. Okay, let's put our rotor on. I don't have the wheel seal in there yet because, like I said, it's got to come apart again. So don't go driving away because we got no wheel bearing grease. Probably shouldn't even really roll these that much. What's wrong with this bearing? It doesn't want to. Same thing. It's just tight. Tight going in there. All right, one rotor done. All right, just continuing on with the continuity here. Dust cap doesn't fit either. Friggin' Speedway, man. Why you guys gotta be like this? Well, I'll mess around with these when it goes together for good. All right, both rotors are on. We're pretty much as far as we can go until we get the coilovers and the rest of the caliper brackets. I just washed this piece up in the parts washer. This is the valence that goes underneath the radiator. And in the video when we were taking this out, I said we might be able to reuse it, and I kind of wanted to reuse it because it really helps with like airflow, directing the airflow through the radiator. So it sits right here, and I think it'll work just fine. We just got to trim, I don't know, maybe 2 inches off of it. So I'll get a more accurate measurement, and we'll cut this down and bolt it back in. We're finally like reassembling stuff. That's cool. Actually, I had it on the wrong side, and when I mock it up on the bottom, it's so close, just this little corner. I wonder if I can just like bolt it on and just like pull that down a little bit. It'll probably be fine. It's so close. Beautiful. I can almost get my fingers through there now. Just pull this back. What's wrong with that? All right, well, that's about as far as I can go without the rest of those parts. And I mean, we got the gist of it from here. Like, if you've got this far on your own car, I'm pretty sure you're capable of figuring out how to put calipers together. The one kind of major thing that we still need to cross off is we need to connect our steering from here to here. But I don't want to do the steering yet. And the reason being, it is way easier to build steering to go around an engine than it is to install an engine around steering. So what I want to do before we do the steering is get the engine and transmission mounted. And then from there, we can just build the steering to go around the exhaust and everything like that and make sure that we get plenty of room. So that'll still be a little bit yet. And yeah, we'll get the coilovers and stuff when they come in. We'll put all those in. But I think this is pretty much going to be the end of this video. So the next video, when we pick up on this project again, I think we're going to start building engine and transmission mounts. Well, so we got to take this transmission out still, which should be pretty straightforward. We've got, you know, most of it apart already. We can get to everything else back here. But yeah, we'll pull the transmission out, and I don't know if we need to take the rear end out yet. Probably. I think the torque tube is going to be in the way, but yeah, either way, I don't have the rear end yet. It's getting rebuilt right now, and I have a mock-up engine here, but I don't have a transmission yet, so I'm going to see if I can find a core to use in the meantime, because Felipe lives in Vancouver, and I'm in Victoria on Vancouver Island, so we're like 4 hours apart, so it's a little bit of a hassle for him to get his parts over here. So if I can find something in the meantime that'll work, that'll save him some time. Anyways, thanks so much for watching. Make sure to check out the website, lgspeedcustom.com. If you learned something in this video and you want to say, thanks, Lee, that was awesome, go to the website, buy a t-shirt, buy some stickers, buy some parts. We got it all, lgspeedcustom.com. Anyways, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys in the next video.